On this episode, we hop on a Zoom call with one of the most impactful people in my life, who also happens to be one of my first therapists. My guest is Megan, and the truth is, I don't know much about her. As most of you know, therapy is largely one-sided. You share everything about yourself while learning very little about the person across from you, aside from the moments of empathy and connection that you experience together. So, since we hadn't worked together in over 20 years, I finally get a chance to turn the tables, asking her the kinds of questions she once asked me and discovering what it's like to be Megan. We also talk about shifting our shit and what it really takes to grow and evolve. And as a side note, Megan was the first person who ever told me to just be. I'm forever grateful for our connection and the impact she's had on my life. Thank you, Megan. Let's jump in.
And so the first half it'll be me interviewing you. So
Okay.
if you do have questions for me, it's not like you can't ask them, but try to hold them if you can, because then you can ask me later, because you're probably going to have different types of questions than anybody else that I've ever had on this podcast, right? So
Yes.
that's interesting. So I want to make sure we save it. That's all.
Great.
And then
And you may have different questions for me than you've ever had for anyone else.
well, so it's so funny that you say that.
Okay.
Because I was thinking, I don't know, are there very many relationships between two people in which one person gives over their soul and the other person, I don't know anything about you. I worked with you for all those years and I know nothing. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, we're just kind of like a receiver, and like you bounce stuff off us and we kind of give it back to you in ways that you can best digest whatever you need to digest at the time.
Okay, so
Okay.
tell me, and you can do as long or as short a version of this as that you want to.
Okay. Are we recording now?
We are live.
Shit. Okay. We're gonna have okay, swearing. I tend to swear, so if I can't swear, I need to know that.
Nope, you're all good.
Okay. I don't want to censor myself.
No, I want that I want you to be one authentically you,
Okay.
because I don't know I don't have any idea who that person is,
Yeah.
right? And
But
two,
you have a sense. You have a sense. I think your intuitive sense, not
Well,
like specifics, but like, yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
well, look, we'll get to this later, but I didn't know that you have a master's in seminary. Is that what that is?
Seminary, yeah. Like I went
Okay.
to seminary, I went to Presbyterian. Yeah, okay.
So, but hold that thought. As long or as short a version as you want. Tell me about Megan from, roughly the time you're born until the time I met you. And you can and I'll have questions along the way, but you just kind of tell me about that person because I know nothing about this. Yeah.
Remind me what year we met. What year would we have met in?
I'm going to say it was like 2006, 2005, somewhere before.
Okay. So I was born in Santa Cruz, California, and lived in Bonnie Doon, which is sort of the mountains of Santa Cruz, Bay Area-ish, Northern California. And we lived there for 3 years. My parents had originally met and fell in love in San Francisco, but my mom wanted to raise me in the country, which Bonnie Doon is very much the country. But my dad worked on a ship, a container ship that sailed from, at the time, it was either Oakland, California, to like the Far East, like Hong Kong, and bringing supplies back and forth. Anyways, but at some point, he transferred from the port of Seattle, and sailed from Seattle to Alaska. So he would fly from San Francisco to Seattle to catch the ship, which you usually do like 50-day on, 50 days off. So that he was in a like 10-day, 5 trips. So 5 days up, 5 days back from Seattle to Alaska and back. So he'd be gone for 50 days and then he'd be home for 50 days. So we decided at some point to move to Seattle because it was just easier. My mom had been born and raised in San Francisco. Her parents, my grandparents, were in Santa Cruz. They had kind of a tumultuous relationship, so I think it was good for everybody for us just to go and be in Seattle. So I was in Seattle from like 3.5 till I went to University of Washington. So I graduated there in 99, and I'm a firstborn daughter. So if you know anything about firstborn daughters, we are in control. We need to be in control. Although my daughter, who's a secondborn daughter, we are very similar. So it's very interesting to see.
Hey, real quick question.
Yes.
And this is kind of personal. So you
Okay.
don't have to, did you have a miscarriage before?
No.
Okay, because I had this theory that sometimes like like if you have a miscarriage, then it's like you're counting the order, it'd still be like 3. You know what I mean?
Yes. I can see that, but no miscarriages. I have a brother who's 5 years younger than me, so we're kind of like only children in some ways. But I was also his mom in a lot of ways, like very interesting. So I was an overachiever, overthinker, you name it, overdid everything. I was great at academics. I was great at sports. Anything I did, I was good at. Didn't realize at the time that I didn't have to do everything I was good at. I could pick and choose, but I was like, just overdid it. So I was the star basketball player in high school, voted MVP for our basketball league, which was a big deal. I got a D1 scholarship, not at the University of Washington, at some other school that I did not want to go to, so I turned it down. And I didn't love basketball. I was really good at it. My dad really wanted me to do it. It was kind of like living his dream, if you will. So, everyone's like, we're going to get her a scholarship. Well, I didn't really want to play. I didn't want to play college sports. So, I wanted to pursue other things, I feel like I kind of got stuck in a rut doing a bunch of shoulding all over myself. And,
were you doing that? Were you doing that for other people other than yourself?
What do you mean? Yes. Yes. I think I played basketball. I think it was partly like, yes, I can succeed. I can succeed at this high level. I did get the D1 scholarship. But I think really, I threatened to quit playing basketball at the end of my junior year, beginning of senior year, because, I was a high scorer, you name it. It was like, just feed Megan the ball. She'll score. That was like, and I was like, no, this is a team sport. That's a lot of pressure on me. I want to play as a team. If we don't play as a team, I'm not playing. And because then it was like, oh, look who Megan thinks she is. She's the one who always gets the ball, then it's like that. And I will own, I was a little bit of a Miss Goody Two-Shoes. I will tell you, like I was, straight-laced, didn't get in trouble. Friends could be, grounded, and their parents would still let them hang out with me because they knew they weren't going to get in any trouble. Like I was not, I was very straight-laced. And so I think that rubbed people the wrong way. So I wanted to go. University of Washington was awesome. I wanted to be nobody. I would, 60,000 students, so I just went and loved it, every minute of it. I designed my own major. Talk about overachiever. Didn't like what, the huge university had to offer, so I designed my own, which I called community health management, which really was a way for me to take all the classes I wanted to take in the School of Medicine that were like preventative health and wellness classes. But so and then I got really big into like speech communication. I was an art major for a while. I love art. One of my pieces behind me, but so I just very eclectic, very complex, and so graduated University of Washington, wanted to get as far away from Seattle as possible. Mostly family stuff that I was like, I'm done with this, needed boundaries. In my mind, Florida was like, from Seattle to Florida, if I could get as far away. But I ended up in Tucson, Arizona, and I worked at the University of Arizona as the Presbyterian, so the Presbyterian campus ministry, right? Again, straight-laced, to have a whole, following the rules, so the church stuff for a while was like my jam. And so they needed I think the first year I was there, they had an interim director, so I became like the intern. Second year I was there, I was the interim director. And then while I was there, they were like, hey, if you decide to go to seminary, we'll help you pay for it. And I had no idea, like graduating undergrad was a little bit of I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do with my life. I had wanted originally to be a naturopathic physician. That's what I went to the University of Washington. I went in as a pre-nursing major thinking I was going to get all this medical prerequisites so that I could go and get a master's or doctorate in naturopathic medicine at Bastyr University. But I started bombing my hard science classes, so I had to switch gears. And I'm not used to bombing things. I'm not used to failing. And so I had to switch gears. So I became an art major. And then I, did the speech communication. I did all these things. And I was like, I got to create my own thing. But creating your own thing coming out of school, you're like, what the hell am I going to do with this? So I did the campus ministry stuff. Partly, it's kind of like, it's a kind of a volunteer thing, but it's not a volunteer thing. But I had been exposed to a lot of people who'd done the Catholic Church has some sort of similar program. And I was like, oh, that's cool. It's kind of like a Peace Corps thing, but it's through the church. So I was like, I'll do that for a couple of years and I'll figure it out. But my second year in Tucson, my parents followed me there. They sold their house in Seattle and moved to Tucson, which I was like, okay, time to go. I got to go now. But yes, the church had said, if you decide to go to seminary, we'll help you pay for it. I knew really clearly I did not want to be a pastor, did not want to preach, did not want to have anything to do with like church politics. But I was then pretty convinced like my calling is to be a therapist. So I found a Presbyterian seminary that you could get your master's in marriage and family therapy, which was the discipline that I wanted to do. I didn't want to do social work. I didn't want to do psychology. They're all very different, but marriage and family therapy is very systemic oriented. So I basically got a master's in systems theory, which is a very holistic way to look at life. That's how systems work. And that's why, it's all the relationships. I mean, my expertise is in relationships and systems because everything affects everything else. Question?
Yeah, great setup. Tell me about the relationship with your parents.
Yeah. So, it's interesting. My dad had said that like my parents couldn't have been married had my dad stayed at home and worked a normal 9-to-5 job. Like, he needed to go and be away from my mom. I think they needed to be away from each other, and that's how it worked. And we have had conversations about that over the years. My mom, sometimes it felt like I was the parentified child. So oftentimes, emotionally, I think I was the emotional regulator of the family. So I was, at some point, I would say it was about, I was 9, 10 or so, 11, where I got a really clear sense that, oh, these people aren't going to be able to help me emotionally, like support me emotionally.
How old were you at that point?
Like 10, I would say 10.
Wow.
Yeah. So there was a whole incident. It was a whole thing, but it was kind of like, the bubble burst. And I tried for years to like help my parents grow up, help them like see what I needed or see, what they were doing that was like, they could be better at parenting, be more emotionally. And they were, both parents, they checked the boxes of all, like if you handed them a paper and said, I did all the things. They were great, providers, they put food on the table. They, made sure we were clothed, drove us where we needed to go, showed up at all or most of all of our sporting events and activities, very supportive, all the things. But emotionally, there was definitely some, inability to be what I needed as a kid. So I knew as a kid, I don't ever want to get married if this is what marriage looks like. I don't ever, it doesn't feel good. We were kind of, as kids, we were pitted against each other. We were triangled in the marriage as far as like, complaining about the other spouse or whatever. And so I was just like, this does not feel good. I don't ever have to get married. I don't ever have to be a mom because I've already kind of mothered everybody. Like, I just need to go and be me.
So you said you're overachiever, over functioning. Was that out of like kind of survival of the family? Is that where that grew and it felt comfortable to do that?
I think it's both. I mean, now that I have a daughter who is very much wired similarly to me, like, I think there's an automatic, I don't even know what it is. If I want to say it's like an anxiety or a stress or a pressure or an intensity. Really what it is, it's like an intensity of personality, right? Of like, I know I can do big things. I'm going to do big things, watch me do this, and so I felt really big feelings. I didn't do anything half-assed at the time. I'm better now, like super perfectionist to the point where I drove my family crazy, so I think it was both. I think it was, yes, my personality, and yes, if I did everything perfectly, could they just leave me alone and let me just live my life and let me do my thing,
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, so.
And that bled out into everywhere else though too, correct?
And at the age of 16, junior year, I got chronic fatigue, diagnosed with chronic fatigue, was trying to figure out what the heck this was. Finally, I guess what they settled on is chronic fatigue because, I was just worn out, completely worn out. I'd come home from school at like lunch, take a nap, so I'd be ready to go to basketball practice because that was really, what everybody was mostly wanting me to do. I was just worn out. And I think a lot of it was emotionally worn out, And I remember incidences of trying to like, call my family out on certain things and be like, just stop this or just, do this differently or whatever. And it was always my fault, like if you want to talk about, I was the scapegoat, I was always too sensitive to whatever, like, oh, if you would just relax, this wouldn't be such a problem, like it was always, what was wrong with me. And maybe that also served a purpose of like, I don't know. I think sometimes of like how even that illness played a role somehow in the relationship I had with my mom. I don't know. I spent 40 years like hypercritical analyzing all of that shit. And when COVID happened and my dad passed away 8 years ago now in 18, so like that and COVID like kind of changed my life in a lot of ways of like, it just let me let go of so much shit. Like, I got this sense of like, life is short. Why am I still worrying about this stuff? Why am I still, thinking about this? Why am I still mad? Why am I still whatever? So, I don't know. It's interesting to talk about it now because I really haven't thought about it in a while.
Tell me about losing your dad.
So my dad, we were supposed to go celebrate his 71st birthday in Las Vegas because the year before his 70th birthday, we had gone January to go celebrate it. And it was like this big family reunion, his siblings, longtime friends, me, my brother, my husband, his, soon to be wife, huge, big celebration. My dad was, not a big party or anything either, but like he would sit in front of this like Texas Hold'em, not even a card game, like a machine. And he would just amaretto on ice, like not even amaretto sour or anything. Like he just had this little tiny glass and he'd just sip on this and he'd just do this. And he loved it. And he just wanted to be left alone. Like he didn't need to go do any, like he was not a flashy guy. Didn't need to go Cirque du Soleil or anything. But so we were planning to go for his 71st. And he called like right before we were supposed to fly out. And he said, went to the doctor, got some tests. It turns out I have cancer. He was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. And so I changed my ticket and flew to San Diego. They were living in San Diego at the time. And just trying to wrap my head around what was going on. And my mom's a nurse, so she knows like all the medical stuff. And she's reading through his MyChart stuff. And, she's like, this looks worse than what the doctors are saying. Like, this isn't just like cancer. We're going to do chemo and it'll be fine, so I'm kind of combing through it. And my dad he's not horrible. I mean, 6 months before this, he had come to Kentucky, Louisville, where I live now, and watched my kids for a week while my husband and I went on vacation all by himself. So I went, they were going to start chemo and do whatever. But yeah, the paperwork all said he had everything was in his, what do they call it? Peritoneal cavity, which is like, it bleeds out into all of the outside of the organs, which is not a good sign. So anyway, diagnosed January, long story. He passed away in May. So it was a quick thing. And it was pretty transformative for me. I mean, it was sad because he had always been kind of my cheerleader. Like, he and I had always had a good relationship. I mean, he didn't get a lot of things, but I could just call him out on his shit and he'd just be like, okay, whatever, like there was no like emotional bullshit between us, like he was capable of what he was capable of. He had a great sense of humor, like always like, just trying to make people laugh, really got along with everybody, just an interesting guy. Not perfect by any means. I have no like thought about that, but the traveling back and forth was an interesting, from San Diego to Louisville, probably at least 4 or 5 times. It was a process. If you asked me the year that it happened, I probably wouldn't have been able to talk about it. Like it's been 8 years, so there's some space there, but and it was the year that my brother was getting married. So like he passed in May, my brother was getting married in September. So like there's just a lot happening all around. So it was super, super sad. Give you the long version of it was really sad, and it was very transformative. Like relationships in the family started to change or shift. My mom up and moved immediately back to San Francisco from San Diego. Like she just, took control of her life and this is what I want to do, and did her thing. And from what I know, she's still doing that. So good for her.
I think originally you said it was transformative for you, but then in the second you said it was transformative for everyone. But say more. I want to hear more about that.
I think I had this, I always felt like the glue of the family. Like I had to be the one that like, let's try to get us all together. I had to keep us together as a family. I had to, be the emotional caretaker or whatever, like, got to make sure we do this. We got to stay as a family. And I think with my dad, who really helped balance out, because my dad and I had more maybe similar personalities. My brother and my mom had similar personalities. So it was kind of like, it's not always comfortable for me to be around my mom and my brother together, or my mom and my brother separately. So with my dad out of the picture, it kind of allowed me permission to really focus, like, well, what do I want? Because I always loved to spend time with my dad. Like that was just always, it was just fun to be around, always laughing, whatever. So then it was kind of like, well, what does this look like now? And my mom was kind of recreating her own life now, like in San Francisco. My brother went and got married, so he was kind of doing his own thing. So then it was like, where am I? What am I doing? And then in the midst of all that, COVID hit, and it was kind of like, well, we can't travel now. So, what does that mean about getting together and, seeing each other and all that? So it kind of gave me permission to step outside the role that I'd always played for the family and really hone in on my role in my new family with my husband and my 2 kids of like, what do we want? I don't necessarily have to be worried about all these other people. I could just focus on this nuclear family.
Does that feel more balanced?
I mean, my people are my husband, my son, and my daughter. Like they're just incredible human beings. So like, I don't want to spend any time with anybody else, honestly. Like, they're so fascinating. I learned so much from them. I love being married to my husband, mom to these 2 kids, it's amazing. And so like, that's where I want to put all of my time and energy at this point.
So I don't know if this is fair to say, but I feel like I want to say, well, why didn't you choose that for yourself before your father passed? Do you know?
Yeah. That's a good question. I wonder, I think a lot of it, I think in some ways there was an element, I want to say maybe I was taking care of him, like there was an element of taking care of him and coming to see him and wanting to spend time with him. And if I showed up, it changed the balance of things or whatever. But I don't know if I knew that I could before, like I think those things kind of forced it all to happen naturally. And I don't think I knew that I could before.
It makes me think of all the work we did together and not understanding what you meant until I had an event that made me understand what you meant, and I couldn't get there any faster than what I did,
Exactly.
And letting
Exactly.
go of the fact that like I wanted to, like it would have been nice if I could have figured that out. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me about the evolution of the relationship with your mom.
The reality looking at it all is she had a really, really difficult relationship with her own parents. I mean, like, probably they could have been very clinically diagnosed. Again, they checked all the boxes, good provider, made dinners, whatever, whatever, but just emotionally, probably, yes, very abusive, I would say. And so I think my mom tried her best to do it differently. And I think she did in a lot of ways. And, I mean, even looking at like the boomer generation too, is like they just have a certain subset of like, what their belief of raising kids was like. And so they checked those boxes and that was it. And you shouldn't need any more and we're done. Right. So I can't say that like, I can't say that I'm not mad. I don't say like I'm mad anymore. I'm like, whatever. It's just that we're so out of alignment, like it's so out of alignment that I can spend short amount of times with her, but I can't spend a lot of time with her because we get on each other's nerves so quickly, So it's fascinating. I mean, I don't know how else to say it, but again, and back to like emotional regulation and whatever, it's like, there's just, I don't know. It's the evolution of all that has not happened as fully as I would have wished or hoped for her.
Are you at peace with that?
I am now. I don't know how she feels about all that, like, because we don't have that conversation and she could watch this and maybe she'll find out or whatever. I don't think she'd be shocked, but, I think sometimes everything is about her and sort of like these things are being done to me, like you are not calling me. And it's sort of like, you can pick up the phone, you can do whatever. And then it's like, oh, but you don't call me back right away. And it's like, well, I usually text to say like, hey, really busy running businesses and, raising kids and doing all this shit. Can we chat on the weekend, which might be a couple days away? So, like it doesn't happen. So part of that's just like, whatever, but yeah, I am at peace with it. And, whatever happens, happens.
All right, so we're going to rewind.
Okay.
And when I met you, you were doing I think you were getting your hours to be a
Yes.
full-time therapist, right?
Fully licensed. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So tell me about Megan at that time.
Whew. 2006, Megan at that time. Oh man, I had such high aspirations for myself. Like I, I mean, I had just gotten married, so got married in 2004. Um, I couldn't wait to be fully licensed. I don't know, like that was some sort of like magical portal that once you got fully licensed, you now could do all these different things. But, I mean, I had these dreams of, again, like, okay, so I did get married and I did have kids, which I didn't have to do, remember, happened very interestingly, but
You were tricked?
not tricked. No,
I'm kidding.
never.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
For me to get married, I had to marry somebody who wanted kids more than I did.
Mm.
And he definitely fit that bill. And he was like, well, if we have kids, great. If we can't have kids for whatever reason, it's fine. I'll just like coach a little league team or do something. Like he just wanted to like give back and, whatever. So, before we had kids, we still love to travel, but like we traveled. I mean, 2004, we may or may not have went to the Bahamas on our honeymoon, but then maybe, perhaps, or not, went to Cuba while we were in the Bahamas. So we did crazy shit. And 2005, we went to Asia. He had lived in Japan, so we went to Japan, Thailand, Vietnam. 2006, I think, was Australia. Anyway, so like travel was a big part of our lives. Adventure, curiosity, learning new things. For me, as a professional, I had these huge goals. I wanted to have my own group practice. Like the practice I was in, I was there because I wanted to learn all the intricacies of what does it take to do group practice. Also wanted to learn what I didn't want to do, which I learned some of those things as well. That evolved into, okay, I'm gonna own this group practice, and then I'm going to buy property to house said group practice, and then I'm going to do like online courses or write books or do all these other sort of things on top of that. So that's where I was at in 2006. Is like, I got to hurry up and get these license for whatever, because I'm going to do all those things.
Okay, and then when do you leave Austin? Because that's roughly when we stop working together, right?
So we moved in June of 2014. But I had taken a break from practicing therapy for a little while because I kind of got disenchanted with it. Like I don't know. I needed a kind of a reset, and I got that reset while I was still in Austin, and I was practicing. I don't know if you saw me when I was practicing out of the little house. There was a little house that I practiced out of for a short period of time. I practiced out anyway. So, but yeah, so 14, I left in 14. So we're coming up on like 12 years of being.
Tell me more about getting disenchanted with therapy.
So I've always been very highly intuitive. I always trust my gut. I always listen to that little inner voice, it has never failed me. I sometimes like to argue with it and try to, want to do things differently. That doesn't usually go well. That's usually with relationships, though, So I think I got to a point where, and at the time, I had my first kiddo, and I went back to work like almost immediately. I was like, well, I can't stop this train. Like, I just got to keep going back to work, and he'll be fine. And we had a nanny. It was part-time. It was like fine. It was all fine. And then I was like, okay, this is a lot of work. This is, like, what's the meaning of all this? So a couple things happened. My husband was dabbling in filmmaking and trying to figure out if he wanted to quit his day job as a software developer to pursue his dream of being a filmmaker. So he had written this short film. He was going to, he took a leave of absence from his job to do this over a summer. And I sort of took a break from therapy to be a producer on this and like make sure shit was getting done and happening and stuff because, I'm good at that. And, it was kind of a mix of a lot of things. But yeah, I think the biggest thing, I needed some sort of inspiration because everybody was shocked when I took this break because I had been gung-ho, full force. I've been on the board of the Texas Association of Marriage and Family Therapists. I was all in all the time. And people were like, are you ever going to go back to this? And I was like, I don't know. And they're like, what happened? And I'm like, I don't know. I just need a break. I just need to figure some shit out. And it more professionally. So it was really about, I started reading more, let's say, metaphysical stuff, trying to understand for me, I don't know if you've had any therapists since me, and if you've been, and I hope that they've been okay, but I do feel like I have a little bit of a unique lens, like I see things uniquely. I'm able to do things differently. So what I really had to come to was what I really believe I'm doing is I'm helping people shift their energy. Whether they're learning stuff about relationships and how they put boundaries around their energy, they're putting, so I had to come more from, and I learned, a lot about quantum mechanics. I learned a lot about, I ended up taking all the Reiki classes you could ever take and becoming, energy master, whatever, I've now studied years, I don't know what year, 8 years of Ericksonian hypnosis, which really dives into the subconscious. And so shifting things from a perhaps soul level, if you will. But, there's that thought of the subconscious kind of being the soul. So I had to make peace with that, of really understanding that for me, and I don't advertise that, most people don't want to know all that, but they'll sense this is different than therapy I've done before or whatever. So yeah, I think I had to redefine it for myself.
So earlier you said, well, I mean, we've already kind of talked about, you're like, overthinker, and you go, I had to change that. So I'm curious, was there a moment or something that really punched you in the face? It was like, I got to change this. And then who are you now? Who are you now with this shift?
Yes. Okay. So I think getting pregnant with my first kiddo, right? And, when they're babies, you kind of are you don't have to be perfect, right? From the beginning, because all you have to do, you got to make sure they're fed and cleaned and loved and whatever. But I think once kiddos came along, it was a real Megan, you got to get your act in order as far as anxiety. I'd always kind of ran a little bit anxious, right? And so I needed to stop over doing all the things. And, it took me a year or two of having the first kiddo to be oh shit, I think just my whole nervous system had been burnt out, fried, wired a certain way, you name it. And so I think the journey really started to I mean, I'd been in therapy since I was 16, been on medication for anxiety, you name it, like to try to be less intense, which is also kind of a little bit my personality. Although if you ask people now, it's so funny. People are like, oh, Megan, you're so calm. You're just so peaceful. You're so, and I'm just like, oh man, like you, and they know, I mean, people know the fire within, but I've had to find a balance for it of like, however I show up in my house with my people, they're going to feel it, right? Like 90+% of what we communicate is our nonverbal communication. Energetically, how I show up matters, like I know I have big energy, big personality, and I also know I have to balance that and I wouldn't say like contain it in a bad way, but I know it's not for everybody. And I know I have to be really careful who I can go there with, if you will. So, I mean, really it was, let's say 2010 to 2012, I'd say is like really the crux of like, you got to work on this. And I don't know if you guys know Creative Mornings. It's kind of like the TED Talks for the creative world. So I got to do a Creative Mornings talk here in Louisville, and I talked specifically about, I had a phrase where fearlessness resides in the softness of the heart. And that was sort of my, how do I soften, think stop overthinking. I'm always going to think because I'm curious, I'm wondering. It's about overthinking and overdoing. I'm always going to be a high functioner. I don't always have to, I don't have to accomplish a lot of things anymore, but the things I do, I'm going to do them really well. Or, my really well is probably most people's like 70%. Like it doesn't have to be great. I can do enough. So anyway, yes, having kids was really like, I don't want to pass my anxiety, physical, energetic anxiety onto them. However they show up with their own personalities, I can't really control that, but I also don't want to exacerbate anything if I don't need to,
Mm-hmm. Tell me about shifting your shit.
Shifting our shit. So have a podcast, the S.O.S podcast, Shifting Our Shit. And honestly, that came about, I don't know, season 1, Rob Giltner and Rob was the one who was like, hey, I want to do this podcast. Do you want to do this with me? And he's in my practice. And so I was like, this could be great, content or whatever. So we just kind of, threw this thing together, and I was like, well, we gotta name it something catchy, like it has to have like a catchy whatever. And I'm all for a good swear word and, really, grabbing that intensity. And I think it was my husband who came up with like, I was like, what about shifting your shit? And he goes, well, if it's shifting our shit, then it's S.O.S. And I was like, sold, done. And, we are very much into being fairly transparent also on the podcast where we're talking about ourselves. And so it was like it's a collective. I like that collective piece instead of always being like the expert and like pointing the finger to say, here's what you should do, So it was kind of more of like, here's how we're all going to shift our shit, So yeah, it's been fun. Took a little break. And then came back with season 5 with my daughter. My son is actually the videographer in it, so it was a family affair. And my daughter, 12-year-old Gracie, is like She's the expert on trust. And I will tell you, most adults cannot articulate the things that she can articulate. And I don't know if it's me being her mom. It is absolutely 1,000% her personality. But she just, yeah, it's incredible. I'm just so proud of her. And it was fun. It was just a lot of fun too. So that's Shifting Our Shit is my podcast.
This final segment is brought to you by HeyJustBe.com. I believe that achieving balance in the mental, physical, and metaphysical aspects of your purpose through learning, serving, and creating can transform your life into one you truly enjoy living. Want to learn more? Visit www.heyjustbe.com.
I feel like maybe I have thanked you before, but I'm going to thank you now on a public forum. There is no Just Be with Scottie G without you entering my life. And there is no me being the person I am. There are just these people in your life, and whether it's the universe putting it together, something happens, and I didn't even, at the time it's happening, I don't realize how impactful that relationship is,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And so, so how I usually wrap up the podcast is I ask people, what do you do to just be the best version of yourself so you can be good for everybody else? So tell me now, what do you do to just be your best self?
Honestly, I try my hardest to put myself first. And
Say more.
that's
Yeah.
That's newer. I mean, because I've been very accomplishment driven. Write a book, write a second book, do the podcast, do this, do whatever. And that's all the doings. And I still talk to clients about this today. Still, just be. What would it be like to just be? And that, I think the just be piece is about knowing who you are, right? Or being okay with who you are and where you are. And it doesn't mean you have to stop there if you don't want to, but also not pathologizing necessarily where you're at in this moment. It is what it is, and just making friends with the discomfort. This is my newest thing, is life is uncomfortable and you just have to be in the discomfort of it. The older we get, the more uncomfortable it gets. So the more you can make friends with the discomfort, optimistically, the more comfortable you'll be because you're not fighting against it. What we resist persists. So you potentially making yourself more uncomfortable by fighting the discomfort. But right now, the things that I focus on is effortless ease, things that are, how do I just be in an effortless ease sort of place? Not forcing things to happen, but just allowing them to be. Haven't historically been a very patient person. That's the intensity in me. So I'm just trying to be really patient and just be in the moment, and whatever's going to come will come. And this is where I was at for the 5 months that my dad was sick, and I was traveling back and forth to San Diego on planes, and I had to just be on the airplane and not do much, right? You're limited on how much you could do on the airplane. So I went into a very meditative space for those several months, and I had been craving that again. And so this is where I'm at this year, is kind of in this just be space of very meditative, very spend a lot of time alone, reading or meditating or, just kind of taking care of myself. But yeah, it's the not having to do anything, not having to prove anything, not having to accomplish anything, not having to, overfunction, overthink, over whatever. It's just being where I'm at and accepting. Like, I love the fact, like with my kids, I'm not a night owl. I am a morning person, hardcore. So I am like done by like 7, 8. And so I'm tapping out. If you need anything, you go to your dad. Like, this is who I am. I'm just gonna be me. This is who I am. I will do my best if dad's not home and you need something at 10 p.m. Like, I will try my hardest, but you're not getting my most optimal self. So like owning who I am and just being myself, not being performative, not being what I think other people need me to be, want me to be, whatever. And that's what's been so fun about parenting, is really not, I mean, of course you're going to think like, well, what does my kid need in this moment? But like really being confident is, I'm just going to show up as myself, and I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to say my process, like, here's where I'm at with this, and my kids are teenagers, which is like totally my jam. Like, I am living my best life as a parent right now. Like, couldn't wait for this moment where it's like all the hard stuff, like all the messiness. It's not the like, I did all the other things, great potty training, off to school, whatever, but like, oh, all the hard conversations, like that's what I've been looking forward to. And so again, just like being myself and being honest. Clearly, I don't tell my kids everything about my own history. Maybe that'll come, but like allowing them also to just be themselves, and accepting people where they're at as well.
Would you say that you're showing up for them the way you wish your parents would have shown up for you?
1,000%. Well, I think both my husband and I have taken the things that we wish were different from our childhoods and really, and, some of that, the difficulty helped us too. Like, we learned from that. Like, I wouldn't say, I mean, clearly you say like, yeah, I wish it was different, but it's also like, but if it was different, would I be the person I am today? What would it look like? So yes, I think my son recently, God, my kids ask the best questions. Like, my son asked recently, he said, how did you and dad decide to raise us the way you raised us? And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he goes, because like other families do not interact the way our family interacts. And I was like, oh, well, what do you mean? And they're like, well, kids are just so mean to their parents. And parents are really kind of mean to their kids. Like, it's just, there's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of fighting. There's a lot of, conflict. And we just don't have that in our family, And I was like, yeah, I mean, what's the point? Like, what do we have to argue about? So anyways, yes, 1,000%, I say we chose very mindfully how we wanted to do this, and we're not perfect. I have had my not so proud parenting moments for sure. And, but I can say I'm sorry and I can repair it after the fact, which matters more than trying to be fake and perfect for the kids when you're really not,
Yeah. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yes.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's sweet. It's so nice to connect with you again. And I have such fond memories of our time together. Like, I don't remember a ton of specifics, but I do remember how people made me feel, or what it was like to be with that person. And I just remember how eager you were to learn. Like, you were like a sponge, just wanting to soak things up. And And I mean, a lot of what you and I did, I feel like became very foundational in what I did with a lot of people after that.
Man.
Yeah. So thank you for that.
I was like, I feel bad for those people. I'm just kidding. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yes.